Welcome to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. I'm Stuart Wellborn, a British author and former therapist, and each week I sit down with Juan Anichi, a spiritual elder from Turtle Island, to explore the deeper truths behind healing, ceremony, and connection to Source. Good evening, Juan Anichi. How are you after having a week off?
We're enjoying the sunny weather.
Sunny?
Yeah, it's nice and sunny out there. It's 60
Well,
some degrees.
Colorado. Colorado weather is like it can be
We had
forever
one,
season.
yeah, we had one big snowstorm, and then about 3 days later, it was all gone.
Just pissing it down here at the minute.
Like when you're in North Dakota, and if you happen to go outside while it's cold, but you have no shoes on, you're barefoot, you can't stand and talk to anybody more than 15 minutes because the soil's so rich there, your feet start to get roots.
There's something spiritual and about connecting with nature by going barefoot. Do you attest to that?
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was saying, in a lot of traditions, people talk about connecting with Earth, Mother Earth, by going barefoot. Do you recommend that?
Yep. It was funny you bring that up because I was just kind of having a conversation with myself about things. And it was kind of explaining the difference in how basically people have disconnected themselves from nature. And that all the answers that we want to know about is in nature. But we don't go to nature. We go to our religious advisors, which basically is a organized religion. Or they go to scientists when the answer is right in front of them, but they don't know how to ask. They don't know how to reconnect. And this is why I kind of, how would you say it, gets frustrated with the so-called Native American Indians because they don't even understand what their culture is, why they're here, and what their purpose is. They have gone over, a lot of them have gone over to the religious side and not the spiritual side.
What is their purpose then?
Pardon?
What is their purpose?
Well, a lot of them have become Catholics.
Not just that, there's also the issue with it being like a ghetto type of situation in certain reservations as well too doesn't help because they more relate to the whole black community as well. You know, when it comes to their culture, because like I said, when you go to certain reservations, not all reservations good. You know, you're actually walking into like a ghetto type of situation in California, you know, but in a Native American type of style. Make sense?
You said in California.
No, I'm saying like a California type of situation or New York, but in a Native American type of tradition. That's what I'm saying. And there are reservations like that.
Yeah, because when you look at it, they don't realize that religion has been invented to control people. And I'm going to probably send you another a quote. Basically,
Well, you're going to send me
I'm,
more than one.
yeah, yeah, this one would probably be pretty good too because it says, how did I put it? Something about if you don't know how to connect, then your questions will never be answered. And when you look at religion, religion is based on that if you have a problem, you let the religious leader resolve it. But it doesn't resolve it because the minute he starts talking about what it is, he owns it and you don't. And just like when you sit there and you see all these people gathered by the thousands in an auditorium, and you have a person up there talking about religion, talking about Jesus Christ, And everybody in the audience is act so crazy. They're clapping their hands. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the minute they walk out, they go back to being who they used to be before they went in. They haven't learned anything. They allow someone else to tell them exactly what's wrong when they themselves should be finding out what's wrong.
Huh.
But how do you do it when you have people being controlled that basically says, like, if I tell you, go do that, the first question you should ask is, do what? But we seem to do things without thinking, without understanding. Do what? Well, simple. Go pick up that trash can and dump it. Now they know exactly what they have to do. But again, they have the right to refuse as well. They say, hell no, you go empty it. Your job. So a lot of times they, rather than trying to help someone out, they throw it back on you, not realizing that all they're doing is asking for help.
Yeah. What's so funny is, we're talking about religion kind of concept that I actually was doing a lot of thinking about that today. So it's kind of weird that you're talking about this at the same time now because I was just thinking that a lot of people don't realize that the whole concept of religion is more of like a tool to help you understand a certain type of truth that they understand. Okay. Because it's pretty funny that you have to go to church on Sunday, for instance, is a good example because of, you know, that we were taught that you have to go to the house of God for God to hear you. But here's the funny thing is that you don't need to go to church to learn that stuff. I meant to do that stuff. You can do it at home as long as you learn the teachings so you can bring it at home for you to learn, You shouldn't have to go to church every Sunday when you already know that you have this connection to God. You don't need the house of God to do that because you can just bring it home with you. It's the tools that you need to learn, and that's the thing about religion is that people don't understand is that they're just providing tools and knowledge for you to empower yourself instead of giving your power to religion. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But a lot of people who like to be in control wants that power for themselves. Is the
But
issue.
surely, different people are on different stages of the journey, and if we go like, my main man Hawkins and his levels of consciousness, for some people they need that kind of guidance, don't they? Whereas more spiritually evolved people, maybe into any religion, but do, like the yogis that will go and sit in one position for 20 years.
Yep. But like the whole goal is to teach so they can teach themselves. They shouldn't be like hoping to hold information, for instance, so they can stay in power so you can keep on asking the answers when in actuality they can do it for themselves.
But the brainwashing itself begins at a young age. And it depends on the teachings that you're getting from your parents that basically kind of molds you into doing what society wants to do. Now, in the old ways, say for instance, in old days, did you have to go to a Catholic priest or a Protestant or Lutheran or a judge to get married? No. You lived together. The community said, all right, they're together. They didn't call it marriage, but they were basically tied together. So they didn't need anybody to say, nomine Padre, Filio, Spiritus Santo, you're blessed, you're married, go out and populate the earth. So when we look at things, everything is geared to give certain people, certain organizations the power to think for you.
Well, that's the trouble when you get any group of people together, though. Any kind of organisation, there'll be good members, but corruption and dodgy people always find the way into them, don't they?
But see, they become the tools that you have to go to, rather than teaching people to use the tools that they need to go to. It's just like, where did all our medicine come from? Did it not come from nature? Didn't nature talk to the indigenous people and show them exactly what these herbal entities were for? And then society took these remedies and made them into dead cells rather than take it. Like when you medicine is meant to be taken one way, and that is through the mouth. Nowadays, they stick a needle in you.
Or stick it up your
So
bum.
that's the natural way. It's like when we sit there, what's the first thing we do when a baby gets, maybe a month or 2 months old? We put them in a crib with bars. So they're confined. So how many of them grow up to be criminals? Because they want those bars. One of the things that our favorite person asked was, when you listen to the indigenous people, I'm not talking about the Native American Indians now, I'm talking about the real indigenous people. Why is their words so powerful? And I sat there and I said, well, when you go to church and there's a congregation of 100 people in there, and the priest said, let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So everybody's repeating those words. And Hail Mary, full of grace. Words. Where's the feelings? There's no feelings there. Now, in an indigenous way of talking and praying, they just said whatever came naturally out of their heart. They didn't think of what they were going to say. They just let it flow, let it come. So their talk, their prayer, whatever you want to talk it, was very personal. And yet, when the next time you went out and you tried to connect to nature, the creator, guess what? Your words change. Again, your heart tells you what to ask for. So you don't ask for the same thing over and over and over and over again. You sit there and you change your feelings. You express those feelings. No matter what, it's like there's a big movement saying, speak your own language. And you sit there and you say, well, if everybody speaks their own language, and you say, well, the creator hears you, or God hears you when you pray in your own language. The question is, well, there's a billion different languages and dialects, but there's only one language of love. So what you focus on is, when you talk, don't think, just feel it. Close your mind off and basically say, if it brings tears to your eyes, good. That means that you've touched your heart and you've allowed the creator, God, whatever the supreme being you think exists, because you're all the same anyway. That's when you're heard. But you don't have to go out there and pray to the Almighty. A lot of your prayers can be answered by the life force energies that surround you. And that's what they don't understand, is that everything is on this earth to help us because we're part of it. But yet we never realized that a lot of answers were there. The knowledge of the herbal energies were shown to us by the animals, by visions. And this is where we learned, because it didn't come from the mouth of human beings. It came from your vision. It came from your connection with nature itself. I always tell people, if you have a question and you ask somebody and they give you an answer, don't take it 100%. Just say, listen to what they say, then go back home and that night, put some tobacco out and say, will you explain the meaning of this to me? And if you ask right, within 4 days, you get an answer. So you get it from the source. So every time someone tells me something, I take it with a grain of salt, take it in, but then I go verify it to make sure that that person told me the right thing. And this is what people have to realize, is that you can learn so much knowledge out there if we're willing to ask and then listen.
Keyword listen, actually.
I just want to rewind a little bit, because I don't want this to sound like, because you bring up church quite a lot. I don't want this to sound like this podcast to be like an attack on Christianity or anything, because there are obviously a lot of different types of Christian churches. I mean, you said there's no feeling in some, but if you go to a gospel church, for example, there's a lot of energy in those churches. And then there's kind of the negative kind of energy when you get those which you only see in America. These people that
Yeah.
with the snakes and doing all the weird shaking about and collapsing and weird dancing going on. So there is a lot of energy. It's just whether it's being used, I guess, as you say, from a loving place.
Yeah. Well, it's like too, you sit there and your loved one passed away. So at the funeral, you go and at some most of the weeks you can go and you can pray at the coffin. And they sit there and they say their little words. They say, "I love you. I miss you." Now, why in the hell did they tell him that when he was alive? They wait until they're gone before you finally have feelings. So we're so screwed up as a society. It's not getting better; it's getting worse. And the only thing I can sit there and talk about all these things from here till they say hell freezes over. But if people don't do anything, what the hell's the good of it?
The best way to put it, I guess, is to your answer is that, you know, why preach something you don't practice yourself?
No, that's a good statement, Matthew.
I always tell people, I said, I feel so lonesome because I'm so alone. Go into the forest. All your relatives are there, and they're willing to listen to you. They're willing to take on your pain. They're willing to help you cure your pain.
It's
But
funny
they
you,
sit.
that's funny you say that because I was going to save it for next week at that point. But people that do go on a spiritual path, you know, that decide to do that tend to then lose friends, not because they've fallen out with them, but because they've out-evolved them or anything. And so for a lot of people, the spiritual path can be quite a lonely path. And this time of year, people on the road. What are you doing, Matthew? People at this time of year can feel isolated and lonely, and it can be depressing. Do you have any advice for those people? Because my kind of advice is become friend. Get used to loving yourself, and because you're born on your own and you will die alone, even if you're surrounded by people.
But like I said, why is that? Why does it feel like that towards you when you go on these walks and stuff like that and can help you understand this spiritual understanding?
No,
Why
but
is
what I'm
that?
saying is, have you got any advice for people who feel lonely? I don't feel lonely. I've got a dog and two cats. So
I know,
fine.
but when you do go on these nature walks, why is that though? I'm saying for you as
For me,
yeah, when
no,
you
it's on about if you, not as in literal going out on a journey. I go walking every day because I've got a dog. But why is your camera zooming in and out?
I don't know,
Has it got an auto zoom or something?
shouldn't.
Are you not seeing that? It's going right in close.
That must be a Zoom thing because everything's fine on this end. That is weird. But like I was saying, is that a lot of people don't realize that it sounds like when you even go on for walks, like what do you even have epiphanies when you go on
Oh
walks?
yeah, all the time.
Okay, so that's somewhat of a connection to that spiritual, understanding. Trying to understand why I'm getting at. But why is that though?
No, my question was about people who are feeling lonely at this time of year because of it being Christmas. People who
Sometimes you have
actually
to
feel
ask,
lonely.
but sometimes, yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. I was going to say is sometimes you have to ask questions with questions for people to find the answers sometimes. Because sometimes they don't even understand the question is already been given an answer when they have that spiritual connection while during that walk. And that is that when you're surrounded by nature, the key is that it may not seem quiet, but it is in its own nature way. Okay, because remember, when it comes to human noise, it's a huge distraction. But when it comes to nature noise, it's not as that type of noise that humans create. Okay, it's more of a harmony noise that it's not something you don't even notice it's there. Okay, and so it helps you to relax, calm, and collect your thoughts. And remember, everything around us has this kind of thought of energy that is being processed around us. Okay, and that includes the trees, the rocks, the energies, wherever that is living among us. Okay, they are transferring this thought of energy, and we can pick this shit up. Sorry for language. Pick this
Leave
stuff
the
up.
swearing to me.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
English.
So,
Well, you look at things too, you mentioned the fact that Christmas is just around the corner and people are kind of feeling bad. Well, again, it's a psychological control of people's minds because all of a sudden Christmas comes out. What do you do? What do you crave? You want gifts. You want acknowledgement. So again, we depend on other human beings to basically bring us happiness when the happiness is all around us. All we have to do is connect. It could be the simplest gift from nature. When you sit down and have a Christmas dinner, nature's on your table. Be thankful that nature has given you all these things that you can now enjoy and you can nourish your body.
but
But, how many people think about it that way?
but that's not the question he was asking. He
No,
was
but
just,
Well, I don't
imagine,
think either of you answered my question because I was actually on about a metaphorical journey then. But back to
I
what
was
you were
about
saying, the quietness, that's what I love about Christmas is because when I walk the dog every day, there is traffic noise and machinery,
Yep.
there's factories and all that. But Boxing Day, Christmas Day, it's all quiet. Just like when we were in lockdowns and all the nature came back out, it's like
Yep.
that's my favourite part of this year is
Yeah,
taking the
that's
dog out.
yeah,
yep. And that's what I was trying to explain.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like I said, when everything is quiet before my dad had to explain things, is that the fact that when everything goes quiet, even nature, like I was saying, has its noise, but it has its calmness of that quietness for your mind to actually pick things up. With distractions, it's harder to pick things up because with all that distraction, it's keeping your mind occupied. And because your mind is so occupied with so much things on the table, you can't concentrate on what's actually there, where that connection is. Then once you do go into that forest and away from all that crap, next thing you know, you click. You're away from that stuff because nature is finally talking to you.
and a lot of times too, when you're out in nature too, the whole idea is that all of a sudden you have these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how nature talks to you.
And not
But
just that, like I say, even one of the things is, yeah, one, like my dad says, don't uh, think, don't let thinking take control because in a way, yes, that is true. Because if you start thinking of yourself and thinking about your issues and all these problems, you're not thinking straight. Okay, but what we actually have to do is instead of thinking of ourselves, we have to think of what is around us and what are those. I call the collective thought of the conscious mind. Okay, because remember, our mind is like an antenna. It actually can communicate with other thoughts, just like everything else can. And we can pick those thoughts up. All right. And imagine that instead of listening to our own thoughts, what if we can listen to other thoughts around us? Imagine if we can do that. Imagine the knowledge we can learn. Even Albert Einstein and even a lot of geniuses may not understand this, but because they do a lot of thinking, where do you think a lot of this information is coming from? Like, how did they understood this that no one else could? Because they learned to think outside the box.
and then a lot of times too, when something comes to us, the first thing we do, we don't let it come in. We question it. Did that really happen?
Exactly.
And so again, it's the mind trying to stop you because they want the mind to interpret anything that you do in the terms of control.
Yep.
So they don't allow the message itself to feel the message and then they understand it. But we want the answer now. We want it today. And they don't realize that sometimes when you have something that happens, sometimes it takes 4 days for your mind to settle down so it doesn't have control, so that your energy can take over.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you know what it meant.
I do this probably once or twice a week where I just sit alone and let my mind collect itself so I can actually hear what's actually out there. The best way to do it. That's why meditation is great. Why people should meditate because it quiets the mind. And then the mind starts picking things up.
How long do you do it for, Matthew?
Uh like I said, I usually do it on Sundays and Mondays. I'll just sit here and start just thinking, and next thing you know, things are just starting to come to me. Like that's what's been happening lately. And one of the things that was whispered to me, it felt like into my ear was out of nowhere, my third eye is opening. And I actually understand what it means is because of how I am understanding the collective thought of the conscious mind that is sending this energy, this essence, this vibration of every living creature that does the same.
One of the things too that people have to learn to live by, and you can put this quote down if you want, is that is in life, take 2 steps forward, but then take 1 step backwards to see where you've been so that it becomes the future no longer is the future, it's the present.
That's actually the concept of clarity. Would you be surprised?
Yeah.
That's what is called clarity, is where you can actually think ahead, but not just to think ahead, but to think around your what is around you and your surroundings, and thinking of your situation of your predicament of what you understand as well, because if you do not have clarity, you can't see things clearly. You can't see of your own mistakes. You can't see other people's mistakes. You can't see what is ahead that's going to hit you in the face, kind of deal. You need clarity to understand that. And something that I need to understand, because it's pretty funny, because I was just thinking sitting down and realizing the thing that is missing in my life is that I need clarity. I'm having too much things clouding my judgment sometimes. I'm downing myself sometimes. When in actuality, I need clarity, because with clarity, then I can see things clear for what it is. You know, but as humans, we tend to not want to see things clearly. We become stubborn in our own ways and not realizing that we need to see things clearly. And for us to see things clearly, we need clarity first. And it's a hard thing to do. Trust me, it's like a path that I'm walking, and it's tough to do. Everybody has to deal with this.
So, he's still not answered my question. How long do you do that for?
Oh, like I said, Saturdays and Sundays.
What, all day?
Sundays, Mondays is when I actually sit down and actually spend hours.
Hours, yeah, that's what I was after.
Hours, sometimes to 6 hours, just thinking. Like it's pretty crazy. Like I said, it's an experience that's really interesting to do, because, like I said, connecting to something that makes sense is the best way to put it. Like, it feels right. Like it's like I'm learning something that is true for once. Like things are starting to be put together like a puzzle kind of deal. Like I said, it's a really hard of an expression to explain. It's just like something you gotta experience once you reach to that point of understanding.
No, I mean, that's a technique that I've come across many times, and I think it was in David Dada's book, where he's talking about polarities and things. But not many people, especially nowadays with phones, could sit in a room on their own with no distractions and just be with themselves.
I know, but I have ADHD. That shouldn't be possible for me, but I'm doing it. So, because I feel like it's a need, if that makes sense. Like, I do need to do this for some reason.
Well, I think most people should do it. I can't say I've done it for hours at a time, but I have done it. My problem is I like to have music on.
You must be getting close to being cutting off time, huh?
But there are times when I think too deep that I feel like they are trying to cut me off, because my brain needs to absorb it, and too much can be absorbed to make it very confusing and hard to understand sometimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As your dad just says, we will be getting cut off soon, so we need to wrap up. Next week, though, I actually want to talk about something that's useful to the listeners who may be suffering from loneliness. So just get that in your mind see if you get any answers on that, because it is a time that people may be on their own and they may feel depressed, they may feel like giving up on their spiritual path or whatever. For the people that will be completely alone, I mean, I've been doing some videos for that, but from a psychological point of view,
I've been there and done that, so I understand.
we want something uplifting for the people that next week will may be spending Christmas on their own, because we'll be recording on Monday and the episode will be coming out on Christmas Day, I believe. Hang on, is that Thursday?
But I got a message for those who are alone, and this is the truth, that you gotta realize we are not actually alone. We weren't never alone to begin with. You just got to realize what is actually there, so you will realize that you are actually not alone.
Yeah, well, we'll save that for a whole conversation
No,
for
I'm
next
just
week
saying
then.
that as a message at the
Yeah.
end of the video.
The other thing too is that the fact that if you've been watching the news
Yeah.
and everything else, a lot of people are they've died for 20 minutes, and then they come back into their experience about the love they feel. But I always sit there and say, did they really die, or did they were just put in suspension? Because they don't seem to go to the source. They get caught about 2 steps into the energy world, but they never get to a point where I think if they ever went all the way, they would never come back. But it seems like they just
that's
hit the
something we
surface, and I think in some cases they're kind of giving the wrong message on how they interpret things.
We'll save that for next time. How's
Yeah.
that sound?
Hawkins talks about that because he says when you get to a certain level of consciousness, excuse me, and enlightenment, you have the choice whether to come back or not.
Well, just to give you a heads up too, is that I've been talking to a couple of my friends in Austria, and they're going to be checking with a lot of indigenous organizations to see if they'll be willing to set up workshops and lectures and maybe even a Mother Earth Lodge. So keep your bag empty.
Also, we're also planning in the future that we may actually go do talks at colleges too. And I'm going to try to stream that live and stuff like that, and be like the next school session. So it'll be like around like the beginning of autumn. So
Thanks for listening to Straight Talk Sacred Pathway. If you'd like to ask Juan and Nietzsche a question, you can email me at stuart@realityresponsibility.com. The link will be in the description. And don't forget, you can download a powerful guided meditation for free at humancircleoflife.com.